The President of the United States could not sleep. At exactly 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time on a Sunday night turning into Monday morning, Donald Trump reached for his phone. Tens of millions of Americans were in bed. The Grammy Awards had just ended on the West Coast, and the leader of the free world was about to post something that would dominate every news platform for the next 48 hours. Not about the government shutdown that started over the weekend, not about the historic trade deal with India he would announce later that same day, not about Iran, where tensions have reached a point that military confrontation seems increasingly possible, about a joke, a comedian, and a threat that could expose everything Trump has spent years trying to keep buried. Here is the full story and every detail you need to understand why this matters far more than another celebrity feud. The 68th Grammy Awards started like any other ceremony. Celebrities walked the red carpet in designer gowns. Performances lit up the stage at Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. Awards were handed out to the biggest names in music, but something was different from the opening moments. The political tension in America had reached a boiling point. In Minneapolis, federal immigration agents have been conducting operations unlike anything seen in modern American history. 3,000 agents deployed to a single metropolitan area, daily confrontations between protesters and officers in the streets, armed standoffs at churches where migrants sought sanctuary, and in January alone, 2 American citizens died during encounters with federal immigration officers. On January 7th, a woman named Renee Good was shot and killed by federal agents who claimed she posed a threat during an enforcement action. She was an American citizen. 7 days later, on January 14th, Alex Preddy died under similar circumstances. Another American citizen killed by federal officers enforcing immigration policy. These deaths sparked outrage that rippled across the country. Artists arriving at the Grammy Awards were not going to let this moment pass in silence. Throughout the ceremony, performers and attendees displayed small pins on their outfits, 2 words in white letters against black background. ICE Out, a direct reference to immigration and customs enforcement, a protest small enough to wear on a lapel but visible enough for cameras to capture. Bad Bunny, accepting an award, delivered remarks that were immediately interpreted as criticism of current policies. His words about communities under siege resonated with millions watching at home. Billie Eilish, winning Song of the Year, used her moment to speak about values and standing up for what matters. The young artist who had grown up in the spotlight was using it to make a statement. Kendrick Lamar, winning Album of the Year, spoke about justice and accountability in America. His words carried the weight of a generation demanding change. Charlie XCX made comments that generated immediate reaction online, adding her voice to the chorus of dissent. But all of this was prelude. The moment that would trigger a presidential meltdown came from the host. Trevor Noah has been a fixture in American political comedy for over a decade. Born in South Africa during apartheid to a black mother and white father, he understands power structures and the way they crumble when exposed to ridicule. Noah took over The Daily Show from Jon Stewart in 2015, just as Donald Trump descended that escalator to announce his first presidential campaign. For the next 7 years, Noah dissected Trump's statements night after night. He mocked the tweets. He analyzed the lies. He became one of the most persistent and effective critics the president had ever faced. The relationship was antagonistic from the start. Trump attacked Noah repeatedly on social media. He called him talentless and unfunny. He said The Daily Show was dying without Jon Stewart. He suggested Noah should be fired. Noah responded by making Trump a central focus of his commentary. The more Trump attacked, the more material Noah had. It was a symbiotic relationship of mutual contempt. When Noah left The Daily Show in 2022, many thought his Trump commentary would fade. Instead, he continued through stand-up specials and these annual Grammy hosting gigs. This was his 6th year as host, and he had announced it would be his last. He was not going to leave quietly. After Billie Eilish accepted her award and the applause died down, Noah took the microphone. "Congratulations, Billie Eilish," he began. "That is a Grammy every artist wants almost as much as Trump wants Greenland." The crowd laughed. Trump's obsession with acquiring Greenland has been a running joke since his first term when he floated the idea of buying the autonomous Danish territory. His continued fixation on the idea has provided comedians with reliable material for years. But Noah was just getting started. Which makes sense, Noah continued, his timing impeccable, because since Epstein is gone, he needs a new island to hang out with Bill Clinton. The laughter in the arena shifted. Nervous energy rippled through the crowd. This was different. This was not about Greenland anymore. This was about Jeffrey Epstein, about the documents just released, about connections that powerful people would prefer to forget. Noah looked directly into the camera with the confidence of someone who had calculated exactly what he was doing. "This is my last year hosting," he said. "What are you going to do about it?" The challenge hung in the air. 4 hours later, at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time, Donald Trump answered. His post on Truth Social was lengthy and furious. "The Grammy Awards are the worst," he wrote. "Virtually unwatchable. CBS is lucky not to have this garbage litter their airwaves any longer." The Grammys were airing on CBS for the final time before moving to a new network. Trump seemed to take satisfaction in this, as though CBS was being punished for broadcasting the ceremony. He continued his attack on Noah specifically. "The host, Trevor Noah, whoever he may be, is almost as bad as Jimmy Kimmel at the low-ratings Academy Awards. The dismissive whoever he may be was classic Trump, pretending not to know someone he has attacked repeatedly for years, diminishing a critic by feigning ignorance of their existence." Then came the accusation. "Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time on Epstein Island," Trump wrote. The capital letters conveyed his emphasis. "Wrong," he added with 3 exclamation points. He insisted he cannot speak for Bill Clinton, but that he himself has never been to Epstein Island nor anywhere close. He claimed that until this false and defamatory statement, he had never been accused of being there, not even by what he called the fake news media. Then came the threat that changes everything. "Noah, a total loser, better get his facts straight and get them straight fast," Trump wrote. "It looks like I will be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC and suing him for plenty." He referenced his recent legal victories. "Ask little George Slopadopoulos and others how that all worked out," he wrote, using a derogatory nickname for ABC anchor George Stephanopoulos. "Also ask CBS." Then the final warning. "Get ready, Noah. I am going to have some fun with you." The threat of a lawsuit from the President of the United States against a comedian. Now I need to explain why this is not just another Trump outburst and why it could backfire catastrophically. Just 3 days before the Grammy ceremony, on January 30th, the Department of Justice released the largest batch of Jeffrey Epstein documents ever made public. More than 3 million pages of documents, thousands of individual records, hundreds of hours of material that Congress had demanded through the Epstein Files Transparency Act, legislation that Trump himself signed into law. In those files, Donald Trump's name appears more than 3,000 times. Let that number sink in for a moment. 3,000 mentions in documents related to a convicted sex offender who trafficked young girls. Now, appearing in documents is not the same as being implicated in crimes. Many of those mentions may be incidental. Media references, legal filings, correspondence that happen to include his name, but 3,000 times is still a staggering number. To understand the weight of this, you need to understand the history between these two men. Trump and Epstein first connected in the late 1980s in New York social circles. Both were fixtures of the Manhattan scene during the Age of Excess. Both cultivated relationships with the wealthy and powerful. Both understood how to use those relationships for access and influence. By the 1990s, their friendship was documented extensively. Photographs show them together at multiple events, parties at Mar-a-Lago, gatherings at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, social functions where the elite of New York mingled and made deals. In 2002, Trump gave an interview to New York Magazine that has followed him ever since. Speaking about Epstein, Trump said he is a terrific guy and added that he had known him for 15 years. Then came the line that has haunted Trump for more than 2 decades. Trump said Epstein likes beautiful women as much as he does, and that many of them are on the younger side. Those words have been quoted thousands of times since, a direct acknowledgement from Trump that he knew Epstein preferred younger women. Trump has spent years trying to distance himself from this quote and from Epstein entirely. He has maintained that they had a falling out sometime in the mid-2000s. He claims he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after Epstein behaved inappropriately with a member's daughter. He says he rejected invitations to visit Epstein's private island in the Caribbean, the location where much of the abuse allegedly occurred. But the relationship during those earlier years is extensively documented. The photographs exist, the quotes exist, the attendance at the same events exists, Epstein died in a Manhattan jail cell in August 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. His death was officially ruled a suicide, though conspiracy theories about whether he was murdered to prevent him from implicating powerful people have persisted ever since. The new documents released by the Justice Department add thousands of pages of context to these relationships and networks. The administration moved quickly to control the narrative. The Deputy Attorney General appeared on multiple networks the day after the release. He explained that some of the FBI tips about Trump's involvement were anonymous and relied on secondhand information. He emphasized that in none of these communications did Epstein suggest Trump did anything criminal or had inappropriate contact with victims. Trump himself posted that the documents completely exonerate him, but the files tell a more complicated story. They revealed that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had planned to visit Epstein's island in December 2012. This is the same Howard Lutnick who claimed last year that he was so revolted by Epstein around 2005 that he decided to never be in a room with that disgusting person ever again. The documents suggest he was planning a trip to that person's island 7 years later. The files revealed that relationships between Epstein and numerous powerful figures continued long after his first conviction in 2008. The files showed a network of connections that extended to some of the highest offices in multiple countries. And then, 3 days after this release, Trevor Noah made his joke. Now you understand why Trump could not sleep. But here is where this becomes potentially catastrophic for the president if he follows through on his lawsuit threat. In any civil lawsuit, there is a procedural phase called discovery. Discovery is when both sides must produce evidence relevant to the claims being litigated. Documents must be exchanged, witnesses must be deposed under oath, communications must be revealed. Anything pertinent to the legal questions can be demanded and must be produced. This is not optional. It is compelled by court order. In a defamation case where Trump claims Noah falsely implied he spent time on Epstein Island, Noah's defense team would gain the legal right to investigate that very claim. They could subpoena records of Trump's travel during the years of his documented friendship with Epstein. They could depose witnesses who attended events where both men were present. They could demand any communication between Trump and Epstein or their representatives. They could explore flight logs, visitor records, calendar entries, and testimony from anyone with relevant knowledge. They could dig into exactly what Trump knew about Epstein's activities and when he knew it. This would not be limited to what Trump chooses to share voluntarily. This would be compelled evidence production. One comment online captured why this matters perfectly. Someone wrote, "Please let him sue because discovery will be incredible." That comment went viral because it articulates what many people are thinking. If Trump actually files this lawsuit, he opens himself to the very scrutiny he has spent years avoiding. To win a defamation case against a public figure like Noah, Trump would need to prove actual malice. This is a legal standard established by the Supreme Court in New York Times versus Sullivan in 1964. It requires demonstrating that the speaker knew their statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Noah's defense would be straightforward and almost certainly effective. He made a comedic joke based on publicly available information. Trump and Epstein were photographed together many times over many years. Their friendship is documented by Trump's own words in that 2002 interview. Thousands of pages of newly released documents mention Trump's name. The comedic connection between Trump's known desire for Greenland and his documented relationship with someone who owned a private island is exactly the kind of satirical commentary the First Amendment was designed to protect. The Supreme Court has been clear on this point for decades. In the 1988 case Hustler Magazine versus Falwell, the court ruled that even outrageous satirical commentary about public figures is protected speech unless it contains provably false statements of fact. Trevor Noah did not state as fact that Trump visited Epstein Island. He made a joke that drew a comedic connection between publicly known facts. This is constitutionally protected speech by any reasonable legal standard. This is why every legal analyst watching this situation believes Trump's lawyers will urge him never to actually file. Because filing means discovery, and discovery could reveal exactly what Trump has spent decades insisting does not exist. Now, Trump has threatened lawsuits countless times throughout his career. He threatened to sue Bill Maher over a joke about his birth certificate. He threatened Rosie O'Donnell so many times it became its own running joke. He has threatened journalists, newspapers, television networks, book authors, former employees, and private citizens who criticized him. The overwhelming majority of these threats never resulted in actual litigation. The threat itself is the strategy. It intimidates critics. It generates headlines. It signals that there will be consequences for mockery, even if those consequences never actually materialize. But something changed recently. Trump did pursue ABC News after George Stephanopoulos incorrectly stated that Trump was found liable for rape in a civil case. The actual verdict was for sexual abuse, not rape. That distinction mattered legally because it was a specific factual error about a court ruling. ABC's parent company Disney settled for $16 million. Trump also pursued CBS and its parent company Paramount. That settlement came as Paramount was seeking regulatory approval for business dealings that required cooperation from the administration. These victories emboldened Trump. They showed that media companies would pay to make legal problems go away rather than face prolonged litigation. But Noah's situation is entirely different. Trevor Noah has no pending corporate merger requiring government approval. He has no business before the administration that could be leveraged. He has no parent company worried about regulatory retaliation. If Trump sues Noah, the comedian has every incentive to fight rather than settle. And fighting means discovery. Discovery means examining everything. This is the trap Trump has walked himself into. The threat was designed to intimidate, to generate headlines, to signal consequences. But actually following through would require Trump to open his entire history with Jeffrey Epstein to legal scrutiny. His lawyers understand this completely. His political advisors understand this. Anyone with basic legal knowledge understands this. The question is whether Trump's ego will override their counsel. Consider what else was happening while Trump composed his 1 a.m. rage post. The federal government was in a partial shutdown. Funding had expired over the weekend. More than 10,000 FAA workers were furloughed. Air traffic controllers were working without pay for the second time in recent months. The House was scrambling to pass emergency legislation. Later that same day, Trump announced a massive trade deal with India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to stop buying Russian oil and to purchase over $500 billion in American energy, technology, agriculture, and other products. In exchange, Trump reduced tariffs on Indian goods from 25% to 18%. This deal, if fully implemented, could reshape global energy markets. Russia relies on oil sales to fund its war in Ukraine. Cutting off one of its largest customers would be a significant economic blow. The geopolitical implications are enormous. Tensions with Iran were at their most dangerous point in years. Trump had posted repeatedly about potential military action. The Iranian supreme leader warned that any American attack would spark a regional war. American warships, including the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, were positioned in the Arabian Sea. Direct negotiations between officials were reportedly underway in Turkey. The Kennedy Center announced it would close for 2 years starting in July. This came after a wave of performers boycotted the venue following Trump's decision to make himself chairman of the board and add his name to the building. Hamilton pulled out. The Washington National Opera left its longtime home. Philip Glass withdrew the world premiere of his Lincoln Symphony. All of these are historic developments. Any single one could define a presidential legacy. Yet what dominated every headline, every cable news segment, every social media conversation was a joke at an awards show and a late-night threat to sue a comedian. This asymmetry reveals something fundamental about this moment. Donald Trump cannot let mockery go unanswered. This psychological pattern has been consistent throughout his entire public life. He has feuded with Saturday Night Live for decades. He attacked Alec Baldwin repeatedly for portraying him. He went after Melissa McCarthy for her impressions. He targeted the show's writers and producers personally. He spent years attacking Rosie O'Donnell after she mocked him on The View. He brought her up in presidential debates. He seemed incapable of moving past an insult from years earlier. He has targeted Meryl Streep, Bette Midler, Cher, and countless other celebrities who criticized him. He has called journalists enemies of the people. He has suggested Saturday Night Live should be investigated by federal authorities for bias. The pattern is unmistakable. No insult is too small. No criticism goes without response. No mockery is allowed to stand unchallenged. And this pattern can be exploited by anyone who understands it. Trevor Noah understands it. When Noah delivered that joke and asked, "What are you going to do about it?" he was not really asking a question. He was making a prediction. He knew Trump would respond. He knew it would generate massive coverage. He knew it would remind millions of Americans about the Epstein connection at the exact moment new documents were dominating the news, and Trump proved him right within hours. Noah accomplished something remarkable with 15 seconds of stage time. He ensured that millions of people who did not watch the Grammys would hear about his joke. He demonstrated yet again that the most powerful person on earth can be baited into a public meltdown by a well-crafted piece of comedy. He created a news event that generated more coverage than any of the actual Grammy winners, and he placed Trump in a no-win situation. If Trump files the lawsuit, discovery begins, and his relationship with Epstein faces legal examination. If Trump backs down from the threat, he looks weak after issuing such strong warnings, and his credibility on future legal threats diminishes. Either outcome benefits Noah. Either outcome costs Trump. The comedian bet that he understood the president's psychology better than the president understands it himself. So far, that bet is paying off. Now the question becomes, what happens next? My assessment is that no lawsuit will actually be filed. Trump's legal team understands that discovery would be catastrophic. They will find ways to let the threat quietly fade from attention. They will claim some form of victory without ever stepping into a courtroom. Trevor Noah will almost certainly remain silent. He has no need to respond. Trump is doing all the work of keeping this story alive. Every additional comment amplifies the original joke. Silence is the optimal strategy. Other comedians are watching this closely. If this episode demonstrates anything, it shows that mockery works. It penetrates Trump's defenses like nothing else. It generates coverage. It reveals psychological vulnerabilities. It baits responses that create more attention than the original criticism ever received. The Epstein documents will continue to generate revelations. 3 million pages take months or years to fully analyze. Journalists and researchers are working through them now. More stories will emerge. More connections will be examined. The shadow of Jeffrey Epstein continues to fall across some of the most powerful institutions in America, and the issues that were pushed aside by this drama will eventually demand attention. The shutdown needs resolution before critical government functions fail. Iran requires careful diplomacy to prevent a catastrophic war. Trade deals need implementation with monitoring to ensure compliance. Immigration policy needs evaluation after American citizens died in enforcement actions. All of these matter more in the long run than what Trevor Noah said at an award show. Yet here we are. This is early February 2026 in America. A president who cannot ignore mockery even when responding amplifies the criticism. A comedian who knows exactly which buttons to push and push them on his way out the door. A legal threat that would expose more than it could ever protect. And a nation watching interpersonal drama while decisions that affect millions go unexamined. When the history of this era is written, moments like this will tell the story, not the policy achievements, not the legislative record, not the exercise of executive power, but the psychology, the priorities, the inability to resist responding to jokes even when silence would be wiser. The Grammy Awards ended. The joke was told. The president could not sleep. And Trevor Noah achieved exactly what he set out to achieve. The only question remaining is whether Donald Trump will make the mistake that his lawyers surely fear, whether he will actually file the lawsuit, whether he will initiate the discovery process that could examine every aspect of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, whether ego will win over legal counsel. That decision rests entirely with one man. And if his lifelong pattern holds, he will make it worse before he lets it go. That has always been the pattern. We are watching it play out in real time. The comedian made his move. The president responded exactly as predicted. Now we see whether he takes the bait even deeper.